Next, let me touch on how we can foster a corporate regulatory environment that allows us to be competitive while strengthening our reputation as a trusted international financial and business center. Here, Dr. Tan Wu Meng raised several points about corporate regulations. MOF continually reviews our corporate regulations to ensure that they remain robust yet business-friendly. Last year, ACRA had undertaken reviews in areas such as the requirements on holding AGMs and filing annual returns. We will simplify these requirements to give greater clarity to companies. We will exempt all private companies from holding AGMs provided they meet certain conditions. And we will also remove the requirement for companies and limited liability partnerships to use the common seals. These will help reduce business costs. Other than amending regulations directly, we are also cutting red tape and improving our systems and processes to reduce compliance and regulatory transaction costs for businesses. For example, Trade First is an assessment framework that Singapore Customs uses to determine the type of trade facilitation that is to be provided to a company. The checklist was revised to reduce the number of criteria by about 50%. So with the revised criteria, each trader can save around 14 man-hours of application time. Another example is the revamped electronic transaction system BizFile Plus, which was launched by ACRA in January 2016. This system has streamlined processes, removed over 100 ad hoc fees, and included mobile options for key transactions. The enhancements will benefit 450,000 registered business entities. The tax filing process will also be improved for businesses this year. IRAS has extended tax filing using a simplified corporate tax return to companies with annual revenue of less than $5 million instead of $1 million. This will help an additional 28,000 companies ease their tax filing compliance. We will continue to review and strengthen our regulatory and governance framework so that it is more robust and transparent. We will amend the Companies Act to allow companies registered in another jurisdiction to transfer for their registration to Singapore, or what is also known as inward redomiciliation. This will make it easier for foreign companies to relocate their businesses here to tap on Singapore's strengths and ease of doing business. We will also amend our laws to require companies and limited liability partnerships to maintain non-public registers containing the particulars of their beneficial owners. And by enhancing efforts to combat money laundering and terrorism financing, this will strengthen our position as a trusted financial center. Besides updating our corporate regulations, we also want to ensure that our overall regulatory environment remains conducive to business innovation. As the Finance Minister mentioned in his speech, we are creating more space for innovation through regulatory sandboxes, where rules are suspended to allow for greater innovation and experimentation. And Ms. Cheryl Chan is right that in doing so, we also have to exercise judgment and make sure that we are fair to the different entities, and particularly to ensure a level playing field is applied to all entities that are being regulated. There are also ongoing efforts by the Pro-Enterprise Panel to address regulatory concerns that businesses face. The panel comprises both business leaders and senior public officers and has received more than 1,900 suggestions, with over 1,000 of these leading to changes in rules or regulations. Finally, several MPs raised points about taxes. Associate Professor Daniel Goh proposed for opt-in tax deferment for retrenched workers for 6 months. I believe that this is a point that Ms. Foo Mee Har had also suggested in the budget debate, and this was addressed by the Finance Minister. I would just reiterate that we already allow taxpayers on IRAS GIRO scheme to pay their income tax in up to 12 monthly interest-free installments. A taxpayer who faces financial hardship may apply to IRAS for longer installment plans. With regard to Mr. Low Tia Kiang's query on the considerations for introducing new taxes, again, the Finance Minister has spoken about them in his budget roundup speech. Let me just reiterate a few points. First, we would all like the government to do more, but we must always ensure that our fiscal system is one that secures a better future for the next generation and not leave them with a bigger debt burden. Any program we put in place must be sustainable for the long term. And that is why we are studying all options carefully to determine the best way to raise revenues to support our future expenditure needs. Second, we must ensure that the overall fiscal system remains competitive, supports economic dynamism, and reinforces individual effort. So whatever adjustments we make, these key principles remain. Then we can continue to keep our economy growing and create more jobs for Singaporeans. In this regard, Associate Professor Randolph Tan is right that we also have to be mindful of income tax changes in other countries. Around the world, corporate income tax rates have been falling, and some countries have announced plans to further reduce their corporate income tax rates. At 17%, our corporate income tax rate is still competitive internationally, but we will continue to monitor the trends and ensure that our tax system remains competitive and pro-growth. At the same time, I should add that our competitiveness is not just based on taxes alone. We compete on many other factors: our quality workforce, rule of law, good corporate governance, and infrastructure. All this have helped to build Singapore's reputation of trust, integrity, and reliability, and given businesses the certainty to invest here for the long term. We will continue to build on these strengths, and the CFE recommendations provide clear steps for us to take over the coming years. Finally, we want to maintain a progressive system of taxes and benefits. It is a system where the higher income households contribute more of the taxes and the lower income households receive more of the benefits. And this is also why we have designed our GST system with a permanent scheme of GST vouchers, so that the overall system is progressive, with the rich paying more. And this is how we help lower and middle income Singaporeans to have better lives and build a society that all Singaporeans can truly benefit from. So we will continue to build on this progressive system of taxes and transfers, even as we consider revenue options for the future.